All right, LitWorkshop. We're going to take a look at Theseus and the Minotaur. We're having some common issues throughout all the classes. Most of the multiple choice are pretty accurate, and we're doing a pretty good job with that. But extended responses, we are struggling with. So we're going to take a look at question number 1 on Theseus and the Minotaur, which asks how the author characterizes Theseus in the story, and then to cite evidence from the text to support it. A lot of you did a really good job of describing the characteristics of Theseus, saying he was brave, courageous, strong, heroic. Some of you also went the route of being selfish, mean, because of some of the actions that took place throughout the story, and those are 100% correct. But we had to take it a step further, and we had to cite specific things from the text that prove that. We also couldn't just say Theseus is courageous and leave it at that, because that's not enough. I think as a character, he's more than just one thing, and it's really important to recognize that if we just say he's courageous, as a bystander who just comes and happens to read your response, do I really know who Theseus is and how the author is trying to portray them if you say he's just brave? It's not enough. So we have to, he's a full-rounded character, and we have to give a little bit more insight on that. The last question, the second extended response for the Theseus and the Minotaur, which usually we only have one. This one had one at the very beginning and then one at the end. And it asked about the importance of Ariadne, or Ariadne, depending on how you say it. But how does her actions and how important is she, and why is she important to the plot? And again, you have to cite specific textual evidence. Now we want to restate it, and a lot of people, you got the answer correct, but you didn't do a good job of explaining it in the way that if I hadn't read the story, I knew what kind of went on, or that I knew what the question was. So that's why we're trying to use race. You need to restate it. So something along the lines of the character of Ariadne allows the plot to continue on, because without her, Theseus would never survive. The reason I say this is because Ariadne gave him string, which would allow him the opportunity after he kills the Minotaur to find his way out. So if she didn't exist in this story, there's no way for Theseus to find his way out, which is always one of the problems. If they were actually able to defeat the Minotaur, they were never going to find their way out. In this case, she helps him out. She's not just doing this for a good deed. She obviously has other reasons behind it, and you can get into that, and some of you did, and you talked about how she also played a part in showing that Theseus was more than just brave, strong, courageous. He was also selfish and a little bit rude, because he kind of left her and just asked her to go do something and took off without her, which again is a good citation of textual evidence here. But other than conveying the type of character that Theseus is, I don't know that that was a major piece of how she moved the plot along. She moved the plot along because without her, Theseus dies, and he doesn't, he no matter what he does with the Minotaur, he can't escape, because she wouldn't be there to provide him with that string. So those are some things that we need to take a look at. I was also grading some of the stuff today with the Underground Railroad. I understand that we don't all like to read, but some of this information, some of you find it very interesting and you're doing very well. Others, you're just trying to speed through this. And I know that when we end up giving an answer that says that the Underground Railroad, they called them the conductors because they were freeing slaves on trains. All you had to do was read it and you knew that there was no actual trains being used here. And that's problematic. That just tells me, that lets me know that you're speeding through this, you're not using the guided reading, and you got to take some time. You have 48 hours for every single assignment we give. Most of these readings you can do within 20 minutes without answering the questions. Just read them and annotate for 20 minutes, take a break, go back to it later, start the guided reading, do the guided reading for about 20 minutes, and then maybe the next day you go through and you do your assessment. And before you submit your assessment, make sure you're going through your extended responses and that you are answering every piece of the question. If it's asking for characteristics, don't just give me one characteristic, give me characteristics, and then also cite with textual evidence if that's what it's asking for. Again, for the most part, you guys are doing a good job of answering the questions, but not in the way that it's asking you to. So take a little bit more time. I will hopefully have a Zoom meeting set up for our next assignment, and we can break out into rooms to work on that together. But I believe that you guys are doing a pretty solid job. I would like you to really focus on restating the prompts and going through and making sure you are answering all of the question and providing everything that it asks.